Welcome in, everyone, to Enablement Uncanned, the deep dive, kicking things off today. Mark here, and with me as always,
Sarah, hello.
Sarah. Sadly, though, no Jack today. Jack is out...
Living his best life, I think.
Yeah, living his best life.
Pressing the flesh, building those relationships,
Out there schmoozing, right.
Yeah.
Which actually is the perfect segue into what we're going to dive into today.
I know. How perfect is that?
Yeah, so we are going to be talking all about the two systems of thinking that we've all got. System 1, System 2. You might have heard of this.
You might have
before.
Indeed.
You know, the book Thinking Fast and Slow. Daniel Kahneman. We're going to be talking about that and how it relates to sales enablement.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got a really great mix of sources today. So we've got some of the, the psychology, the sort of classic stuff like Daniel Kahneman, but then we're also going to be looking at how it's applied in sales and marketing in practice.
Yeah.
And we're going to be looking at some stuff from the sales enablement space as well. I think there's a podcast mentioned in one of our sources.
Oh, really?
Called Enablement Uncanned, funnily enough.
Wow. What are the chances?
Small world.
Yeah. So today is all about getting a really good understanding of how these two thinking systems work, how our brains work.
Yeah.
And then, even more excitingly, I think, we're going to be looking at how tools like generative AI can be used to really boost, enhance
Supercharge.
sales effectiveness, supercharge.
Yeah.
This isn't just about the theory. We're going to look at some practical stuff as well.
Absolutely. Practical takeaways. I mean, it's remarkable how much of what drives our decisions, like buying decisions as well, actually happens kind of below the surface, below conscious thought.
Yes.
And, we all like to think we're these rational human beings, especially in business.
Simply in business. Oh, yeah.
Super rational. But the research, as highlighted in our sources, shows that it's much more complex than that. And, to be honest, way more interesting. And understanding those hidden drivers, the things that happen below the surface, can give you a real advantage in sales.
Okay, so let's get into it then. Let's define these two brain modes that we've got.
Okay.
System 1, first of all, what is that?
System 1. So, imagine your brain's on autopilot. Okay, so it's fast, it's intuitive, and it takes very little conscious effort.
Effortless?
Things you just instinctively know without having to stop and overthink it.
Right.
And it's thought that System 1 handles a huge amount, maybe the majority, of our daily mental activity.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. So things like recognizing a familiar face.
Okay. Yeah.
Or reacting really quickly to a sudden noise.
Yes.
Or knowing that if you touch a hot stove, it's going to hurt.
Right.
So those are all System 1.
Okay.
And it's driven by emotion and past experiences. So it's kind of like your gut is guiding the ship.
Yeah. So instant reaction. You're driving along in your car and then suddenly
Yes.
a car swerves in front of you and you're like,
You slam on the brake.
bang on the brakes.
Yeah.
System 1. You don't even think about it.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Okay.
And then we've got System 2. So that's your brain's more deliberate, more analytical mode. It's slower, it's more conscious, and it really needs your focused attention. It takes mental energy.
Okay.
So this is what you're using when you're maybe tackling a really complex problem at work, or you're weighing up the pros and cons of a big decision, buying a house.
Yeah. Right.
Or learning something new.
Learning, yeah.
You're using System 2. It's kind of like that conscious captain
Right.
taking the helm for the big decisions.
Okay.
And because it takes so much effort,
Yeah.
we tend to use it less often because our brains are lazy.
They are lazy. They want to preserve energy.
They want to save energy. Exactly.
So System 2 is the one that's doing the spreadsheets.
Yes.
It's
crunching the number.
crunching the numbers, making those big decisions.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, here's a really key point. These two systems, they're not totally independent. They're constantly interacting.
Right.
So the immediate emotional responses that you get, the intuitions from System 1, they're actually having a big influence on how your System 2 brain then processes information.
Right.
And how you make your final decisions.
Okay.
So psychologists call this dual processing theory, the idea that these two systems are always online, they're always chatting.
Interesting.
And influencing each other. So it's not really a battle between logic and emotion. It's more of a collaboration.
Working together, yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay. So we've got the fast feeling System 1. We've got the slow logical System 2 working in tandem.
Yeah.
How does this all relate to sales then? Because there's this idea that B2B buying especially, it's all about objective data, rational choices.
The rational buyer.
Yeah.
The myth of the rational buyer.
The myth, exactly.
And our sources really challenge that myth. They say, on the surface, yeah, it might look like a B2B purchase is all about ROI and feature comparisons and all that kind of System 2 stuff.
Yeah.
But the reality is that, trust, the timing of the interaction, the buyer's gut feeling, all that System 1 stuff often plays a much bigger role than we think.
So the business case,
Yes.
which we think is all,
Logic, hard numbers.
logic,
Yeah.
that's actually just like a justification
A justification afterward.
after they've already made the decision emotionally, maybe.
Exactly. A way to rationalize a decision that's already been made.
Right. And that brings us back to Jack out there schmoozing. Sales isn't just about having the best product or the lowest price. It's about building those relationships.
Absolutely.
That trust, that rapport, System 1 stuff.
Yeah, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And our sources actually go into some really interesting ways that salespeople can actually deliberately tap into System 1 thinking,
Okay.
especially in those first interactions, those first meetings.
Oh, so how do you influence someone's gut feeling like that?
So one source suggests, for example, having that first meeting off-site,
Okay.
maybe over breakfast.
Right.
And the thinking is that it takes the prospect out of their usual environment,
Right.
which can often be quite stressful,
The office, yeah.
The office, yeah. It makes them feel a bit more relaxed.
Reduces those cancellations as well.
It reduces cancellations, exactly, and it sends a signal that this meeting is important.
Okay.
We're going to take you out of the office for this.
Right, yeah. Makes sense. But then isn't there a risk that the prospect feels like their time is being wasted, out of the office?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the key is, I think, how you frame it
Right.
and the perceived value of that meeting.
Right.
If the prospect feels like they're going to get something out of it, that it's valuable,
Mm-hmm.
then it's worth it, right?
Yeah.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The same source talks about arriving early
Right.
at the restaurant, picking a good table.
Okay.
Maybe one that's a bit more private, a bit more comfortable,
Comfortable. Yeah.
and even, get this, tipping the wait staff in advance.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now, I know that might sound a little bit manipulative.
It does a little bit. Yeah.
But the idea is to create this really positive, stress-free atmosphere for the client.
Subconsciously. Yeah.
Yeah, influencing their System 1 thinking.
Right. Setting the scene.
Setting the scene, yeah. It's like,
Before you even
start talking business.
start talking. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That is quite, manipulative, I suppose, in a way. But
It is, but it's interesting, right? The source talks about it's like communication as theater
okay.
and pitching as a performance. So
Right.
you're thinking about the environment,
Right.
the whole experience, the feelings, the interaction. Another tactic is bringing a small, thoughtful gift, especially if it's something the client likes.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe a specific food or drink.
Yeah.
Food is very emotionally connected to
Yeah.
people. And the core message here is if you can make the customer feel fantastic, feel good, in those early interactions,
Yeah.
you're much more likely to close the deal later on because System 1 is so powerful.
Right. That lasting impression.
Exactly.
Yeah. It all starts with the feels.
It does.
Right. Okay. So we can't just rely on vibes, though, can we?
Yeah.
We need to convince System 2 as well, the logical brain.
Absolutely. So System 1 might be the one that kind of creates that initial, positive feeling,
Yeah.
but System 2 is the one that's going to analyze it
Okay.
and make the final decision. And System 2 can override System 1
Right.
if it needs to. If it sees a red flag, if something doesn't add up logically.
Okay.
The challenge is that engaging System 2 is hard.
It takes effort.
It takes effort. It needs focus. And we've only got so much mental energy.
Right. The brain's lazy, remember?
The brain's lazy.
It wants to conserve energy.
Exactly.
So we need to make it easy for them to engage System 2.
Absolutely. You need to present a really clear, well-structured, persuasive case,
Okay.
with data,
Data. Yeah.
case studies, ROI projections, all that good stuff.
Right. The logical stuff.
The logical stuff. Even if they're already feeling good about it, you've got to back it up.
Right. Okay. So we've got this interplay between emotion and logic,
Yeah.
feels and reals.
Feels and reals.
Where does generative AI fit into all of this then?
Okay, this is where it gets really cool. So our sources say that AI tools like ChatGPT, Claude, all those
big ones, yeah.
Yeah, all the big names, they can really supercharge the System 2 side of selling.
Okay.
Think about all the time and energy that goes into research.
Oh, yeah.
Coming up with good discovery questions,
Yeah.
writing proposals, drafting emails, handling objections.
Lots of work.
It's a lot of work, and it's all System 2 stuff.
Okay.
But AI can help with all of that.
In what way?
Well, it can analyze huge amounts of data for market insights.
Oh, wow.
It can help you come up with really targeted discovery questions.
Okay.
It can generate first drafts of proposals, personalize emails.
Oh, way.
Yeah, and even help you handle objections. By
Suggesting responses based on what's worked before.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's pretty incredible, right?
Yeah.
And the reality is, a lot of salespeople are already using these tools.
Really?
Whether their companies like it or not.
Under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, if it helps them sell more,
They're going to use it.
they're going to use it. Exactly.
So we shouldn't try to stop them then. We should try to guide them.
Exactly. Instead of trying to block it, we
Yeah.
should be showing people how to use AI properly.
Right. How to get the best out of it.
Exactly.
Okay, so what you're saying is we can use AI to do all that System 2 heavy lifting.
Yes.
So salespeople have more time and energy to focus on the System 1 stuff.
The human stuff.
The human stuff, exactly.
Yeah.
Building relationships, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Think about it. What really builds trust?
Yeah.
Listening to the buyer,
Okay.
really understanding their needs,
Yeah.
reading their body language,
Asking good questions.
asking great questions.
Yeah.
Taking them out for coffee.
Coffee, yeah. Building that relationship.
All the stuff that AI can't do.
Exactly. And as one of our sources says, you win more deals through trust than through PowerPoint presentations.
That's a good point.
It's true.
It's all about the human connection.
It is.
And AI can help us get there faster by taking care of all that other stuff.
It's like AI is augmenting our intelligence, freeing us up to be more human.
I like that. That's a really good way of putting it. So these ideas, they're not completely new to our listeners, are they?
No, not at all.
You know, one of our sources mentions that System 1 and System 2 in sales was actually talked about on Enablement Uncanned before.
I know. I thought that was interesting with
Yeah.
Natasha Lindsay at that big conference in Birmingham.
Right, right.
So, these ideas have been around for a while.
Yeah.
It's just that now with AI,
Things are changing.
things are really accelerating. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so to sum up, what are the key takeaways for our listeners today?
Okay. So, number one, understand the two systems.
System 1, System 2.
System 1, the fast one, emotional. System 2, the slow one, logical.
Yeah.
Number 2, in sales, logic is important, but trust is key.
Right.
And trust is a System 1 thing.
Yeah.
And number 3, generative AI can really help with all that System 2 work.
Freeing us up.
Freeing us up to be more human, build those relationships, and close more deals.
It's all about working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. So, listener, I want you to think about your own sales process.
Yeah.
Where are you spending most of your time on System 2 tasks?
Okay.
And how could you use AI to maybe automate some of that?
Free up some time.
Free up some time to focus on the human stuff.
Really good question to think about. Well, thanks for taking us through all of that. That was fascinating.
My pleasure.
And thanks to everyone for listening to this deep dive on Enablement Uncanned.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time.